Hi, I'm Max.
I'm Ella.
I'm Neve.
I'm Emily.
We're experts by experience, and what that means is that we sort of meet with professionals and try and ensure that the care that young people are receiving in hospital is the best that it can be.
Welcome to our third episode of Stepping Forward, which is a safe space for everyone to help you feel less alone in your mental health struggles.
Today we will discuss navigating family and relationships around when leaving hospital.
It is essential that if you are listening to this and feel vulnerable at any point, you speak to those around you and make the most of the support that you have.
Now, let's get into it. So I know that fitting into the environment you initially came from, when you were ill, and then going into hospital units, whatever it was for you, it can be very strange coming back. Family dynamics can change, and I think there's a lot of not necessarily mistrust, but naturally you were very unwell, and so having gone through a lot and had to, be taken out of your family environment, it can be really difficult to go back there, especially if you've been gone for a while, if other things have happened at home, and I completely understand that it can be like a whole new world, a completely different place to where you left it. And sometimes the old environment can be triggering. I don't know about any of you guys, but where I got ill, I had a lot of memories associated with certain areas in my house, and what I had to do was make new ones and explain to my parents and my brother why I felt that way, and then they would sort of try and help me reframe that part of that area, or they helped me redecorate my room so that what once became almost a trigger was now a bit of a safer space that my family knew about and I could share with them.
Yeah, so for me, I have my own bathroom in my house, and I literally just moved into my house as I was getting really, really poorly, and my bathroom was kind of when I came back into that environment, it was quite difficult to sort of, see that place that I was so poorly in. So for my discharge present, my parents helped me repaint my bathroom, so I went from just a plain white, and I got hot pink. So
yes.
Love it.
I know that with my parents as well, when I was discharged, they were still quite sort of worried. They didn't want to take any risks or do anything. Even things that I knew I'd be safe doing, they were still worried about in case anything was to happen, just because I think when you go into hospital, your risk a lot of the time it does increase with different things. Mm-hmm. So I know that my parents didn't want to put me at any risk, but at the same time, I felt was overly restrictive. So I think talking to your parents about what is actually going to be a risk and ensuring that they know what is genuinely a risk and what is just okay for you to be around is helpful.
And also I think something when you're coming back home after being away for a period of time, routines are going to change to what you've been used to, especially in my family. My whole family is neurodivergent, so routines are
same.
So routines are very important to us to sort of keep going and stuff. So when I came back, everything had changed, and I just really needed to communicate with my parents, with my siblings, this has changed, this is difficult for me, how can we move around this and make it more comfortable for both me and for you?
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I don't know about you guys, but being in hospital, it's it almost becomes home in a very weird way. So then coming back to your actual home, it's complete new territory. It's you don't know what to do, because realistically you're in hospital, there's so many restrictions, there's so many things that you can't do, whereas when you come home you've just got free will to do anything you want. And I think it's really important to communicate to your parents or whoever it is that you live with at home, just vocalise them feelings and talk about, I'm actually struggling with, this is a big change, even though you may have lived there obviously before you went in. It's still, if you've been away for however long it has been, it is literally strange and unfamiliar.
No, totally. And I think I struggled with the lack of trust, which I wholeheartedly understood coming from my parents' end. Unwell for a long time. Unfortunately, I did lie a lot. I think that happens with a lot of mental health illnesses. It is the nature of whatever disorder, illness you have. It wants to try and stay there for as long as possible undetected so it can thrive. So, certain things they were we've got to watch you do things or not let you have certain objects and that and the other, and I had to explain to them that the level of their mistrust upset me a bit, And I was trying to explain to them that in order for me to get better, I do still need to have things. I can't have everything like locked away and coddled from me, because I will be going into the real world, hopefully, and not ever going back into hospital and places like that. And so having to, you know, really fight for the ability to just live a bit more of a normal life, I struggled with. So I think it's really important you advocate and try and explain that it's a part of my journey.
I think like another thing with like restrictions, like not being there anymore, like social media and phones, I think are quite a big thing. So in a lot of units, you know, there's no phones allowed, and if you do have phones, it's sort of like brick phones, just texting and stuff. And like with social media, I don't know about you guys, but when I was poorly, I followed a lot of unhelpful content on social media.
100%.
And when I came out, it was very much sort of detox, get rid of all of this, and like don't be afraid to like cut people out of your life.
You owe people nothing.
Yeah, like do what's best for you. Don't, you know, if you follow people and you're like, oh, I actually don't think it's helpful for me to watch this content anymore, don't. Like, it's not going to help you, don't do it.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, my mum was very like, it's almost like she wanted to wrap me up in like cotton wool and protect me from everything, which was kind of then not stopping me, but like making me unable to go out and do things that a normal 16, 17-year-old girl would be doing. So like, you know, I'd be in my room, I'd want to get up to go to the toilet in the middle of the night, and she'd be immediately getting out of bed thinking I'm going to go do something
unhelpful.
Yeah, that I would maybe do obviously in the past. And I think it's important that you communicate to your parents, like you say, you've got to have that level of trust, and they've got to be willing to kind of let you prove yourself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're like, oh no, you know, I don't want you to do this, don't need to do that, I've got to keep an eye on you, when actually I'm still a 16-year-old girl. I know I've had my struggles, but I'm still,
I deserve independence.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, back to what Neve said about sort of social media. Obviously, when you're in hospital, you will make friends, because you're both, like, everyone there is going through probably one of the worst times of their life, and you sort of bond over that in a sense, because you understand what you're going through. But also, when you see their content on social media, a lot of the time they're still very poorly, and it's not helpful. So you don't need to feel guilty about sort of stopping seeing their content or cutting someone off, because it's not. If it's going to be harmful to your recovery, then it's not worth watching at all.
I think it's also important for you to manage your expectations of the progress of your recovery. I mean, I know I thought that I had to be immediately recovered when I left what ended up being my last admission, and that is so untrue. If anything, I was much poorlier when I was discharged until I started working on my recovery myself, obviously still with the help of some professionals and stuff, but you know, you're still allowed to struggle. You're not expected to be miraculously cured after 3 months, 6 months, a year, a couple years in hospitals, inpatient. Like, you're not just gonna suddenly bling, I'm all better because I've been discharged. They often discharge you when they think you might be able to manage and, you know, do better on your own and with yourself. So I think it's so important to let yourself struggle, but not let yourself use the struggling to relapse.
I think as well, like, with the still being allowed to struggle, there's sort of, I'm sure this has been talked about in other episodes, but like the honeymoon period of discharge, and you're like, oh, everything's fine, everything's great, I'm so happy, and then it sort of hits you like, oh, actually, I'm not fully recovered, and sort of using sort of things that you've used in hospital, like, I don't know if any of you guys had a PBS plan, positive behaviour support plan, sort of referring back to that and thinking about, okay, what did I do in hospital that was working for me? What did I do that kept me grounded? How can I teach my caregivers this? How can I teach people around me to sort of know these techniques and know how to use them with me when I am having that sort of struggling moment?
Yeah.
I definitely think what you said was very important about the kind of like, you know, once you come out of hospital, you know, it's not like, okay, that's it, I'm better. Like, you know, you are still recovering. Like, recovery isn't something that just stops. Like, it's a lifelong thing. You're constantly working on yourself, and I think it's important that when you do have a bad day or, you know, whatever it may be, you don't beat yourself up about it, because I feel like when you start putting pressure on yourself to be perfect and meet these really high expectations, that's kind of when you spiral downhill, because you're putting all this pressure on yourself, and I feel like for me, I definitely crumble a lot under pressure.
Oh yeah.
Especially because you don't want to feel like you're letting people down. I've been through this long, hard journey. You know, I should be okay now.
Yeah.
Why am I still feeling like this? When actually, as well as the fact that we obviously we've been poorly, and you know, we've gone through some horrific things. We are still also young people that have bad days. You know, everyone has bad days, and it's important to not beat yourself up over it. And again, back to communicating, just communicate. So it sounds so silly, but it's so important to make sure you talk about your feelings and not hide it away and just deal with it yourself, because it will eat you alive, really. I don't know if any of you agree, but
Yeah, no, 100%.
Discharged, it's really weird for like the people you live with to adjust to that, because I think when I was in hospital, not in like a horrible way, but my parents were almost quite relieved in a way, because they didn't have to sort of manage all the risk in the home, whereas they were just obviously terrified all the time that something would happen, and that so I think when you come home, it's just having sort of open conversations with your parents, because they should, like, with the time you're away, they might have come to sort of accept your difficulties a bit more and sort of be more prepared to deal with them. Because I know that when I went away, my mum and my stepdad did quite a lot of extensive research about my difficulties and sort of how to help. And I also know that, back to what I was saying earlier, having too many restrictions at home is also equally as unhelpful, because then it's almost like the second you have an opportunity to access the things you wouldn't, because they've been labelled as risky, even though they aren't, they then become risky.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I also think that for me, what was really helpful was having PRN as when I needed it, because my parents controlled my meds, but I would ask them if they could just leave just one dose of PRN out, because a lot of the time if I was really struggling, I wouldn't want to come to them. But it's just having that sort of trust between us that I wouldn't misuse it.
Independence as well.
Yeah.
I need that.
Yeah.
Being able to recognise when I need help and sort of being able to manage that myself, but with other people being aware.
It's like a step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your parents, it's not like your parents are going to be there forever.
Yeah.
You're gonna need to build your own like independence and go out, and I need to take PRN, and you know.
So a big thing for me also was navigating family relationships. So while I was away, my brother had struggled with some other mental health issues, and learning, you know, it wasn't exactly the same as mine, unfortunately. You know, a lot of familial, like, genetics and stuff play a role in mental health. And so it was navigating, making sure that he was okay. He'd been diagnosed with autism, and making sure that while my family and he was accommodating my needs, I was also accommodating theirs and his. And I think that was so important. And also, just briefly, Emily was saying recovery is lifelong. I do agree to a certain extent, but maybe, I think life, even if you haven't suffered from mental health, like, you're just trying to better yourself as a person. I personally believe in like a full recovery from all mental health. You know, within reason, you still have days where you're anxious, you still have days where you don't feel your best, but that's not necessarily you being really unwell again. That's being human. And I think it's really important to be like, recovery doesn't have to be 100% all the time, but you'll get to a point where it no longer affects your life and you're just trying to better yourself, and you don't have to associate with what has destroyed you for so long.
I think, like, another thing back to what Emily was saying about, like, oh, you come out of hospital and you're magically better, is like, what do you say to people when you come out of hospital and they think you're magically better, and like, oh, you've been to hospital, you're better now. Like, well, actually, I'm not. This is an ongoing thing that I'm going to be going through for, you know, a longer period of time than just right now. And like, another one of my worries was when I went back to school after being in hospital, like, what are people going to ask me? Like, where, like, you know, are they going to say, where have you been? You know, why have you missed so much school? Like, what's going on? Like, what do I say to them in that situation? And I think the thing that I found easiest to just say was, I was poorly, and just move on to the next topic. Like,
yeah, I definitely found like navigating friendships after I'd been discharged quite difficult, because on one side you have your friends that are like you know, I don't want to say they're dealing with it well, but like they're understanding on a certain to a certain extent. But also then you have the people that are like, every time you're having a bad day, they kind of will use it against you almost. And I think it's important that if you have people like that in your life, get them out, because you can't have people around you that, because, you know, oh, you're being paranoid, oh, it's because of this, or it's because you went through that. Like, no, like, don't use it against me. Of course, sometimes it can be my mental health, but also don't try and, you know,
and it's
use it negatively against me.
And it's like, you can always come back to friendships. Like, if the friendship isn't benefiting either of you right now, you can take a break on the friendship. You can always revisit it in, 6 months, a year, whenever you feel able to, if you want to continue that friendship or not. Like, it's not forever that you just have to cut people out of your life if you don't want to.
And I think a big thing for me is I did lose some friends, and I got diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and I'd spent a lot of time masking. And what I did before I went away to uni, I know, and that can be the same for transition from schools, moving house, like whatever your situation is, this applies. I decided that I was going to cut off the people that were making me feel worse, that no longer served me, made my environment negative. And then all that's happened is that I'm now with friends that know the real me. They don't care how crazy I am, how quickly I speak, all of these things. I'm really slowing this down for the podcast, by the way. But I think I've surrounded myself with such a positive group of people who accept me for exactly what I am. And I've finally got comfortable now explaining my backstory, so they're aware of my past, but emphasis on it is my past. I don't want them to treat me any differently, but just be in mind that if I say have a panic attack or something, that is something that might happen, and that's okay. They know how to support me, and I think if they're really true friends, they will help you through thick and thin. And I still have a few that have been with me since the very beginning and are still here now to this day while I'm recording this podcast. And I think, yes, you will lose some people along the way. Yes, it's really difficult, but in the end, you'll end up way better off for it because you will have your people, your circle. Exactly. It's a blessing in disguise. Exactly.
I completely agree with that as well, because when I first went into hospital, a lot of my friends just cut me off. And while I can understand that it's hard to be around someone who's so unwell, it wasn't because of anything that I'd done wrong, but obviously I then took that to heart and thought, oh, there's something wrong with me, people don't want to be friends with me. But then the people that stuck by me throughout my entire admission are the people that I have so much love and appreciation for, because if someone doesn't want to be with you when you're at your worst, they shouldn't be there for your best. It's like, if they're not gonna support you when you need it, why should they be there when like you really want to be friends with them? And also making friendships like after an admission is also kind of difficult, because I know that when I got my ADHD diagnosis, it literally again was a blessing in disguise, because I've been masking for so long and didn't understand why I was feeling the way that I was. But now I've got friends who accept me even when I'm really hyper, talking really fast again.
Yeah.
And that's something that like it's really nice to sort of be accepted like as you are without having to mask. Yeah.
There are some people that will be like,
yeah, exactly. Some people that just see like a label.
They love every wonky part of you.
Yeah.
I think one of my like top tips around like friends and stuff is like, don't be afraid to be selfish. You are, you're very vulnerable right now if you're being discharged. You're coming into a whole new environment. Don't be afraid to just like go, no, sorry, you're not benefiting me. I don't want this relationship anymore. New relationships will come. They always do. And it doesn't feel like that sometimes. Like, oh, everyone's left me, I feel horrible. They will come. They will come back.
And they'll be better than...
And they will be better than before.
Like,
100%. Honestly.
When I arrived at my last ward that I was on, where it's a low secure, so you're supposed to be there for quite a while, one of the conversations I had with a patient there on my first night was them telling me, you have to be selfish in these places. Because I don't think, like obviously when you get to know people in hospital, because everyone is so unwell, it's sort of hard to manage sort of seeing people doing certain things and being just so unwell and distressed, and it's really hard. So sort of taking yourself out of those situations, I wouldn't even say it's selfish, it's just you're literally doing what's best for you, because it's really difficult to sort of stay in friendships that just revolve around being unwell. I know that a lot of people that I met in inpatient, like, yes, they understand what was going on, but a lot of the time it can be unhelpful because they just assume that because I've been there and done a lot of sort of harmful things that I'll be willing to listen to any of it. So I kind of think another top tip is to set boundaries. Like, you do not need to feel guilty about that whatsoever, because if it's harming you, then you don't want that. It's not worth your time. So
and it's like, me and Max met through, we weren't in the same hospital together, but we knew each other before we both got poorly, and then I reached out full advice as I was being discharged and reintegrating into school. And our friendship's been really healthy because we know each other's boundaries. We know where not to go. We know where to go. And, like, yeah, honestly, making friends after being poorly and recovering can be easy. Find the right people. Like,
when I was discharged, I didn't speak to the people in my ward because I was still really poorly. And so what I did instead was wait until I was in a place where I was recovered. And not unfortunately, but that was about a year, maybe a bit more later, where I could comfortably say that I was okay to speak to people from my ward that I had friendships with. And so, for example, Eloise, you will know her from some of the other podcast episodes. We were together for a bit in an outpatient unit, and I didn't speak to her for a very long time after we discharged. We were both discharged, and then I got back in contact with her not that long ago because I thought, well, you know, she said she was doing okay. I knew I was doing good. Like, we were both in a place where we could reintroduce that friendship, and it was positive rather than something that would trigger each other or bounce off of each other. And like Max was saying, it's not selfish, but you need to realise that in this life, it's kind of you. It's your life is your life, and you know, it's only ever going to be influenced positively or negatively. And so prioritising your happiness, your health, just everything that you want to be is so important. And it's okay to cut people off, come back to it, or you don't even have to come back to them if you want to completely, you know, that was a past self of yours. Those were people you met. You're glad that you were with them when you were with them, but you know, you don't have to get back in touch even if you had a relationship while you were in services.
I also think that when you're in hospital, a lot of the behaviours you're displaying are almost normalised because it's kind of like, oh, everyone's doing this, everyone's doing that. So when you're in, like, back in the community, it doesn't always have to be a case of, like, talking to everyone who is very unwell or is very unwell, because it's just not helpful a lot of the time. Like, if all your behaviours that are harming you are being normalised, that's not okay, because it's almost like there's a difference between accepting something and normalising it. Like, you can accept that the stuff you're doing isn't helpful and sort of try and work on that instead of just having everyone doing it and it almost seeming like it's okay. Like, it's not okay to be struggling or okay to be struggling, but it's sort of like it shouldn't be seen as sort of it's okay to relapse, it's okay to do this. Like, yes, it is okay to relapse, but it shouldn't be a thing of you're expected to relapse because that's what everyone else is doing. I feel like a lot of people will post on social media and be like, oh, relapse is a part of recovery. No, it's not. You do not need to relapse to recover, and that almost allows everyone to sort of justify going backwards and sort of, it just sort of, the illness you have, it will just keep you in its grasp if you believe that it's okay to relapse because everyone is. It's like you just need to sort of take yourself away from it and almost see that you don't have to relapse just because everyone else is. I think a top tip for when you are struggling and you're at home is to sort of, if you're having a bad day, be able to communicate with the people you live with, because if you're having a bad day and something happens, then you don't want to sort of respond in a way that sort of is full of anger or just very strong emotions, but sort of being able to have a conversation with them, be like, this has happened, you can get whatever support you need, but also explain, like, so they're aware that just because you've had a bad day doesn't mean that you're completely relapsing and completely going backwards, and that it's okay to sort of have days that feel harder and really unmanageable, but know that they aren't unmanageable and that you have people there.
I think another top tip would be for, like, managing your distress before it gets to crisis in the community is having a sensory box. You can literally put whatever you want in it. In mine, I had something for each sense, and then I also had, like, little sheets with techniques and stuff that I could use to help sort of calm myself down. So for taste, I had sour sweets, because I don't know the science behind it. Someone more sciencey could talk on it, but it, like, sort of shocks the brain, I think, to, like, calm yourself down. I don't know, but it worked. Some toxic waste was fire. For sight, I had my laptop. To be fair, that wasn't in the box, that was just in my room, but I had that, and I had my LED lights. You know, for what other things? For sight, yeah, that was that. What else? Smell. I had little lavender bags, because something I did in therapy when I was inpatient was we associated a certain smell with being calm and like being serene or whatever. So if I was in an incident, someone would bring me like lavender oil or a lavender bag and I'd smell it and I'd just be like zen or whatever. I don't know. Weird, but it worked. Touch. Yeah, touch. I had fluffy blankets, weighted blankets, heat.
Heat, yes. Something that really helped me was when my emotions were like really high, I'd go have a shower, or I'd kind of just put my head out the window, not in like a dangerous way, but I just kind of let the air hit, or I'd go wash my hands with like freezing cold water. That always and like, you know, splash your face. And Max, I don't know if you remember, but we used to have them sweets. I can't remember what they were called, but any sort of like hard sweet,
Popping
and it
candy as well.
kind of like brings you down, like the emotions, and you're focusing on the sweet. And there was these for smell, there was these really strong, and it would almost like make your eyes water. I can't remember what they're called.
Essential oils.
Yeah, and you'd smell it and it kind of would be like, oh my god, like, okay, and it kind of would bring you back down from whatever it is that you're dealing with, and it kind of just would be like calm.
I also had like in my box when I was inpatient, my therapist and I, we made like little laminated posters that were really cutesy and like not clinical at all with different techniques. So I had like a progressive muscle relaxation one, a breathing one,
Bit of tip.
but tip skills, yeah. I had ice packs in my box as well. Heat packs, ice packs, hot water bottles, anything that helps you, put it in the box.
Also, as someone who has a lot of thoughts going around my mind constantly, and they all used to be quite negative, I used to have a journal of hatred and rage, which sounds so stupid, but I would word
A burn book.
basically a burn book, but to everything that made me angry, everything I was feeling, I would completely just splurge it all onto a page. And I'm talking 4 pages at a time, it could be. I would furiously scribble in a corner. But once it was on the paper, I felt like I could let it leave my mind. So in my little box, I always had a journal. And for reference, I ended up filling up 9. So and I'm talking big notebooks. So do you know what? It definitely helped me because I felt that I could let it go, be at peace, because it was now out on paper in the world and I didn't have to keep ruminating on it.
I also think that, like, with links to having a shower, having a really cold shower is quite helpful for grounding. I find
bath.
that, yes, it was always sort of, it's not a nice experience going in the shower and getting really cold, but it does sort of calm you down. And also if like personal hygiene is something that you struggle with, it sort of works as a 2-in-1 for like
2-in-1.
getting in the shower, but also calming yourself down. So I found that really helpful.
Yeah.
So we've had a question from another young person, which is, what was the best way that friends or family supported you?
For me, I found that sort of not judging me was helpful, because if I was having a bad day, I wouldn't want all the people around me to think that I was sort of like death. I didn't want them to think I was literally about to die. So it's sort of like being able to understand that you're having an intense emotion, but that you're able to deal with it, and sort of helping you work through the difficult feelings you have, but sort of having the understanding that you are going to keep yourself safe and that you're all right. So just being someone that you can talk to without sort of any judgment or any sort of change in how they view you.
So I'm in eating disorder recovery, and my friends were really, really good with me when it came to challenging fear foods, because that was something I put off for a long, long time, was challenging fear foods. So when I got discharged, you know, I'd go out with my friends, we'd go river jumping, do whatever teenagers do, I don't know. And, you know, so we'd go back and they'd be like, oh, Neve, do you want to come and get ice cream with us? I'd be like, oh, I don't know. And they'd sit down, they'd eat it with me, you know, they'd distract me. And then, yeah, they were just really good. And we made like a fear food, like, yay. I don't really know what it was, but it was really good, so.
No, I had a similar experience. So when I was finally getting better, I got out of hospital, I also had some fear foods. So in the beginning, it was helpful for my friends to sort of stick by me. They were really cute. They did a fear food Friday, and they were like, right, we're gonna have some tacos and they'd help me. We'd all cook it together. So not only was I eating, but I was also preparing food, which is something I struggled with because I'm also an eating disorder recovery for reference. And so not only would I help prepare the food, but, you know, might have a little bit of wine or something that just made you'd be giggling. You'd have silly music on. You'd really have a fun time. And then as I got a bit better, it wasn't Fear Food Friday, it was just Friends Friday. So it wasn't focused around my eating disorder because I wanted the focus to be sort of turned away from that. So it sort of just became, and you could do that with your family, your friends, anyone, as long as you can have a laugh. Thank you for completing and engaging in all 3 episodes of our first series. We're so grateful for your listening and hope that you can return in the future, as we have so much more to discuss and many more topics to cover. We want to help as many people as possible and remind them that they deserve support, they're not alone, and that you're completely valid. And remember, keep stepping forward!